Good evening.
Three years ago this week, I lost my sweet husband, Joe,
After his brave 21-month battle with leukemia. Joe and I were college sweethearts. We moved to Champaign-Urbana in 1987 to go to grad school at the University of Illinois, thinking we'd eventually move back to our native New England. We never made it. We were married 26 years, and I can honestly say they were all pretty damn happy. We were a perfect match of kindred souls, a great team, tall and short, quiet and loud, faster and fast. We had common interests, shared goals, different strengths, unconditional love. But Joe's untimely passing meant living the rest of my life without him. How was I going to manage the grief that engulfed me, ambushing me constantly, like when I would call his cell phone number out of habit? Grief that pierced my heart so deeply, I had to get a pacemaker to fix it. As a society, we don't like to talk about grief. It's just easier to avoid that subject altogether. I mean, who wants to tackle that 5-ton elephant in the room? Well, tonight, I am going to talk about grief and tell you, maybe even convince you, that grief can be a good thing. Grief has taught me that tears are good. When we cry, we purge our bodies of toxic chemicals. Really, this is true. It is. I read it in a book that Dr. Joyce Brothers wrote after her husband died. If we don't cry, the bad stuff does not have a way to get out of our bodies. Thank you, grief. Grief taught me to face fire. I knew that joining the grief support group offered by Carl's hospice program would be brutally hard, and it was. Each class was like taking a fire hose to the face. Becoming a student of grief, I learned there's no free pass on grieving. I just had to do it. But by actively choosing to grieve, I was exercising some control over an overwhelming situation. Thank you, grief. Grief has helped me connect more deeply to my running. Now, running was a huge part of my life with Joe and remains a huge part of my ongoing recovery. I run to connect with Joe's spirit. On an early morning run in the dark, with a sky full of stars and a full moon still visible overhead, I absolutely feel his presence, and I'm uplifted by it. Before he died, Joe asked me to enter specific races and to run in places that he wouldn't get to. My running has taken me to the top of Pikes Peak, to the trails of Boise's Bogus Basin, and far beyond. I'm running more than ever and enjoying it like never before. So thank you, grief. Grief helped me get over my fear of flying. Now, Joe's death had the unfortunate timing of being close to when my younger son, Paul, was heading to California for college to join his older brother, Jake, who was already there as a grad student. I was going to have an empty nest, but not the one I envisioned a few years ago. I was staring down a big, empty house. No Joe, no kids, just me and the mice. Grief encouraged me to flip that scenario on its head, to use my new life as an opportunity to seek as much travel and adventure as possible. In the past 3 years, I've traveled to Spain, and to France, and to California to visit the kids more times than I can remember. Now, this is a big deal because this amount of travel involved a lot of planes, and I've been a fearful flyer my entire life. But if I was going to embrace this new lifestyle, I had to get over my fear of flying. Thank you, grief. Grief has also showed me how to honor somebody's memory in unique and meaningful ways. Working with the Urbana Park District, we buried Joe's remains at the base of a Majesty sugar maple tree planted near the large pavilion in Crystal Lake Park, and installed a handsome and sturdy Memorial Joe bench near the tree. We also honored Joe by creating a memorial fund to benefit the local soccer club that both of our boys played in and that Joe coached in for years. Through the incredible generosity of family and friends, we were able to endow the Joe Fund, which now has almost $100,000 in it. Since Joe coached the youngest kids in the club, we now buy all the uniforms for the U9 boys and girls teams each fall. Joe's spirit is alive and well in Champaign-Urbana. Thank you, grief. Grief has taught me to lean on friends and to be open to new ones. I would not be surviving and standing here tonight without the endless love and support of my family and friends. But I've also been blessed in the time since Joe died to have some new friends come into my life. People who I believe were placed in my path at this time because I needed them to be. I like to think that Joe sent them. So Joe, thank you. Grief has made me want to bring happiness to others. I try harder to find joy in every day and not to complain or let dumb, petty things bother me. I get immense joy from bringing happiness to other people. As the co-race director of the 20,000 runner Christie Clinic Illinois Marathon, I'm the main person who handles calls and emails from thousands of entrants. If an entrant has a question or problem, I'm their girl. My real job title, apparently, is the make people happy person. I love this job. When I make other people happy, it makes me happy too. So thank you, grief. Grief has taught me to be more patient and to have greater faith. Joe had the patience of Job. Remember, I did tell you he coached youth soccer. Since he died, I've found the faith to believe that whatever my future is, it will unfold exactly as it was meant to be, and to be at peace with that. Thank you, grief. And lastly, grief has taught me to live for the moment. Giving myself over to living for the moment frees me from the pain of Joe's illness and watching him die, little by little, in front of my eyes. Today is Saturday, and I'm going to do my best to live it fully. Tomorrow, Sunday, I'm going to do the same. I'm mindful of enjoying all the small moments in life. Be in the moment is my mantra. Thank you, grief. The grief I've endured from losing Joe has made me a kinder, better, more empathetic person, a more thoughtful person. I'm stronger and more resilient than I ever thought. I now know I can survive anything. I had these traits before Joe died. I just didn't know it the way I do now. Thank you, grief. Grief can make us bitter or better. I choose better. And so, I'll keep on living and cry when I need to and face fire every day and be a joyful and dedicated runner and seek even more travel and adventure and honor Joe's memory in unique ways and hold my family and friends dear and make people happy and be more patient and have more faith and live for the moment. Thank you, grief.